Okay, so hi everyone, welcome back to Pisces Man. Today I'm starting a new series about learning astrology. So all of you, anyone can learn astrology. And over the past few months, quite a lot of people have asked me how to interpret charts and can you please interpret for me, and how can I do it myself, and some of you want to understand your own chart. So some of you also want to read charts for your friends and family, and I'm getting messages because some of you simply want to understand why some astrologers come to a certain conclusion. So I've decided to create a complete astrology learning series from the very beginning. Now, before we start, I want to make one thing clear. You are not going to become an astrologer by watching one video. Okay, astrology is a skill, just like anything else. Okay, like learning a language, learning medicine, learning music. Sorry, So, learning a profession, anything, okay? It takes time, it takes practice. The more charts you look at, the more patterns you begin to recognize. The more mistakes you make, the more you learn. Okay, just like anything else. The more experience you gain, the better your judgment becomes. So my goal with this series is not just to teach astrology theory. My goal is to teach you how to actually read a chart. And understand that it's going to be difficult. That's what you're thinking, but I'm going to simplify it as much as possible. Okay, I'll make sure that you understand what you're looking at. By the end of the series, you should be able to open a birth chart, identify the major components, and understand what they mean, and begin building your own interpretation, because everybody's experience is different. The people that you meet, people go through a lot of different things in their lifetimes. I may not be able to see, I may not have experience with certain kind of situations. You may have, all right? And when you look at the charts of those people, you may understand more about a person than I would, because I have a limited amount of people that I'm dealing with. The more exposure you have, the more you learn, basically. Okay, the better astrologer you become. Okay, it's not about reading a book and going online and teaching someone. It's not about that. It's about learning the skill, applying the skill. Okay, I'm still learning. Astrology is not simple. It's very, very deep. Every now and then, whenever I feel like, oh, I've understood this, and then something new comes up, and then I'm like, okay, this can happen as well. And then there's so many other things that can happen which I didn't expect. Okay. So it's a very, very complicated science, I would say. Okay. We'll start with the foundation and gradually move into advanced topics. Okay. Now, we're going to start with the foundation, all right? And in the foundation, we're going to learn about what is Vedic astrology, the difference between Vedic and Western astrology, okay, sidereal and tropical astrology. What is a birth chart? The most important thing, what is a birth chart? We'll look at the ascendants, okay, the 12 signs, the 12 houses, the 9 planets. So we're going to look at all this, explain everything in detail, okay? And these are like the building blocks of astrology, all right? And then we'll move on to different things like planetary strengths. what planets are exalted, what makes them exalted, how they become debilitated, what are retrograde planets, combusted planets, aspects, okay, planetary aspects, your house lords, all right, and how an astrologer will judge whether a planet is strong or weak. Okay, we'll also look at marriage, we'll look at children in your birth chart, how to actually read their birth chart, health, your own health, money, very important, spirituality, foreign settlements, and a lot of all that will be seen through this these charts. Okay, and we'll also cover yogas. Okay, what are yogas? These are combination of planets that make certain yogas. All right, the combination that astrologers use when interpreting charts. Okay, there's some good yogas, bad yogas. There's something we call constellation, nakshatras, one of the most important part of Vedic astrology. Okay, and we'll look at dashas, time periods. Okay, this, once you learn all this till dashas, you'll be able to interpret your own time. You'll be able to evaluate your own self. Okay, the timing system in Vedic astrology it is used to understand when events are most likely to happen. Okay, when should I start a business? When should I not do something? These sort of things, very important, and it has made a huge impact in my life personally. Okay, divisional charts. So you see, we have the birth chart, the D1, and then we have D10s. We have all sort of different charts. I'm gonna get into all of them. I'm still learning all of them. Okay, and I'm gonna teach you the ones that I know best. And by the time I think we get here, I'll be able to learn all of them. Now, we also then, this is the basic foundation. Once we're heading into advanced chart reading. Okay, we're gonna study charts. Okay, you don't have to worry if some of these terms sound unfamiliar. By the end of the series, it'll make perfect sense to you. Okay, but for today's lesson, we're going to start with the most basic question of all. What exactly is astrology? Okay, what exactly is the birth chart? Now, before we begin this whole series, I think it's only fair that I tell you a little bit about myself and how I got interested in astrology in the first place, okay? First of all, I don't really want to reveal my name online, so you can simply call me the Pisces Man by my channel. I've been studying astrology since 2011. That's when my interest really began. And before that, I was actually a very skeptical person. I was quite straightforward, very logical in my thinking. I didn't really believe in astrology at all. Okay, none of this. Now, at the time, I happened to be visiting my family in India. One of my relatives brought me to see an elderly astrologer who had been reading charts for many, many years. He's a family astrologer. He was well known within the whole community and, had a lot of experience, and people really, really believed him. During the reading, he mentioned something very, very specific. Now, he said that I needed to be careful with my head. He told me this. He didn't go into any detail. He didn't tell me. He just suggested that there could be some kind of injury or serious issue involving my head within a certain period of time. Okay? So he told me the time period, and he said there's something going to happen. Just be careful. Just don't get into an accident, blah, blah, blah. To be honest, I didn't think much of it. I remember thinking that it was a strange thing to say. I was very skeptical. and I simply forgot about the whole thing and I carried on with my life. Then, within about a year, something happened that completely changed my perspective, okay? I had a seizure. After investigations, okay, they did a CT scan for me and it showed that I had a brain tumor. Now the tumor had bled, okay, it was bleeding, and I eventually required a brain surgery. Now thankfully everything went well, there was no issues whatsoever. I have no more seizures, okay, I recovered very well. I'm healthy today, I'm able to live a normal life, but the experience stayed with me. Now for the first time I found myself asking a very question to myself. How did this astrologer see something that specific? What exactly was he looking at? What did he see in that chart? I didn't know. Okay, that question led me down a path that I've been following ever since. Now, from that point onwards, I started studying astrology. It's not because I wanted to become an astrologer, not because I wanted to make money out of this. I simply wanted to understand what I had experienced. Now, over the many years now, I have read books. I've studied the charts. I've been online, all on YouTube, spoken to astrologers. I tested ideas. I made mistakes. I learned from those mistakes. I gradually built my own understanding of astrology. I still consider myself as a student. I don't claim to know anything. I don't claim that astrology is perfect. What I can say is that after studying it for many years, I have personally found it to be a fascinating and useful tool for understanding patterns, to understand timing, life events. Whether you ultimately believe in astrology or not is entirely up to you. My goal in this whole series that I'm doing right now is not to convince you of anything, okay? My goal is simply to teach you that this is what I've learned. And if you decided to continue with the series, I would encourage you to approach astrology with curiosity rather than a blind belief. Study it, question it. You should test it. Look at real charts. See what works and what doesn't. And most importantly, don't study astrology purely because you think it will make money. The people who become good at astrology are usually the people who genuinely enjoy learning it. You need patience, you need practice, you need to look at many charts, and you need to develop an interest in understanding people, understanding their life. The more charts that you study, the more patterns you begin to see. And with enough time and experience, those patterns will start to make sense. So with this introduction out of the way, let's begin the very beginning, okay? Let's start at the start. What exactly is astrology? So let's begin with the first question. What exactly is astrology? Okay, most people think astrology means zodiac signs. So they will correlate the day, their birthday, and then they will look up online or they look into the newspaper and see which date to which date is which zodiac sign. So we have 12 zodiac signs, okay? So we have Aries, we have Taurus, we have Gemini, we have Cancer, we have Leo, we got Virgo, we got Libra, we got Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. When most people hear the word astrology, this is usually what comes to mind, okay? But astrology is much bigger than this. Astrology is the study of the relationship between the position of celestial bodies and events that happen in a human's life. Okay, now that sounds complicated, but it really is not. Celestial bodies simply means things we see in the sky. Okay, those are celestial bodies. Okay, what are celestial bodies? The sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. These are planets, isn't it? This is what I meant by celestial bodies. Okay, in Vedic astrology, we also include Rahu and Ketu. The basic idea is very simple. At every moment, these planets occupy a certain position in the sky. Okay? As time passes, those positions change. Astrology records these positions, okay, like a snapshot. Okay, and we study the pattern they create then. Now, whether astrology works or doesn't work is not something we're going to debate here. Okay, the purpose of this whole series is to learn astrology. Okay, just like when you study any profession, for example, let's study medicine. You first learn the anatomy before deciding whether a treatment works. In astrology, we first need to learn the language. We need to understand the signs, the houses, the planets, the constellation, nakshatras, the dashas. Okay, once we understand all this, only then we can begin interpreting a chart. One of the biggest misunderstandings is that astrology is about predicting the future. This is not where astrology begins. Astrology begins with observation. Where was the sun? Where was the moon? Where was Jupiter? Where was Saturn? What was happening in the sky at a particular moment? Once those positions are recorded, they form what we call a birth chart. Okay, and that brings us to the next question. What exactly is a birth chart? So, what is a birth chart? Now we have some basic understanding of what astrology is. Now, the next question is birth chart. What exactly is it? A birth chart is simply a map, okay? Map of the sky at the exact moment you were born. That's all it is. It is not a prediction. It is not a fortune telling thing, okay? Like a compass. No, it's not a report card. It's simply a map. Imagine that we could freeze time, take a snapshot. Okay, let's say a baby is born at 10:30 in the morning. Okay, at the exact moment, the sun is somewhere in the sky, the moon is somewhere in the sky, Mercury is somewhere in the sky, Venus is somewhere in the sky, Mars is somewhere in the sky. So when I say in the sky, I mean in space, of course in space, but we're looking from Earth towards the sky. Okay, every planet occupies a specific positions from our position from Earth. Okay, so if we record all of those positions and place them onto a chart, we create what is known as a birth chart. Okay, another way to think about it is a photograph, of course, making this look like a snapshot. Imagine taking a photograph of the sky, okay, at the exact moment a person is born. So the photograph becomes their birth chart. If another baby is born an hour later, the sky has already changed. the planets continue moving. The earth is moving. The ascendants will change. The moon change position. The chart changes. The chart just changes for the next person. This is why birth time is extremely important in astrology. Even a small difference in your birth time can produce a different chart. Okay, and to create a birth chart, we need 3 pieces of information. Number 1, the date of birth. Number 2, the exact time of birth. And number 3, the place of birth. Without these 3 things, we cannot accurately create a chart. Once we have this information, we have astrology softwares that can calculate the position of all the planets and create a birth chart. There's so many online sources. You can go to any one of them. Okay. Now, when people first look at a chart, it looks confusing. You see these boxes. If you look at the Western chart, it looks even more confusing with those circle and the lines. You see numbers, you see symbols, you see planets, lines. It can look very overwhelming in the first appearance, okay? But don't worry, a birth chart is actually built from only a few basic components, okay? We only look at a few things: the signs, the houses, and the planets. Everything else in astrology is built on top of those foundations. Okay, just remember: sign, houses, and planets. Once you understand those 3 things, reading a chart becomes much easier. And this is exactly what we're going to learn. Now, what we know so far, we know that what a birth chart is. And the next question should be, what exactly are we looking at when we open a birth chart? Okay, the first glance, a birth chart can look complicated. You see symbols, you see boxes, numbers, planets, lines, and all that stuff. Okay, now different charts may even look completely different depending on the software being used. But when we simplify everything down, every birth chart is built from only 3 basic components: signs, houses, and planets. If you understand these 3 things, you understand the foundation of astrology. Everything else is built on top of these 3 things. Okay, let's start with the signs. So the zodiacs are divided into 12 signs. So we have our Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. Okay, each sign has its own characteristic and its own ruler. You can think of the signs as different environments, different settings, different types of energy. Okay, now we look at the houses. There are 12 houses in astrology. So there are 12 zodiac signs, 12 houses. The houses represent different areas of life. Now, for example, one house may represent your career. Another one may represent marriage. Another one may represent money. Okay, another one may represent your health. The houses tell us where something is happening in a person's life. Now, finally, we have the planets. Planets are the active part of the chart. Planets are the ones that do things. Each planet has its own nature. Okay, it has its own role, it has its own meaning. Now, for example, the sun represents different things from the moon. The moon represents different things from Mars. Mars represents different things from Jupiter. Every planet has its own job. They move differently. They take their own different time. They function different. Everything is different. A simple way to understand this is to imagine a theater. Okay? These signs are the stage. The houses are the locations where the scene takes place. The planets are the actors. Okay? The actors have different characters, of course, and they behave differently depending on which stage they are standing on and which part of the theater they are performing in. This is essentially what astrologers are studying. Which planet is involved, which sign is it in, and which house is it in. This is the foundation of chart reading. If we move through this course, we will study each of this in detail. The first signs, the houses, the planets, okay? Once you understand those three things and how why are they, like, why do we look at these things? The chart, to read the chart, it becomes really, really easy. So before we move on, remember this: every chart is built from signs, houses, and planets. Everything else in astrology is simply an extension of those three building blocks.